If you're just joining us, where have you been? We've spoken about the latest in Tunisian football. We've spoken about a piece of Moroccan football history. RS Berkane, they still have a way to catch up to Wydad Casablanca, who have 22 titles. We've spoken about North African football, but now let's talk about what is happening on the continent holistically. The World Cup qualifiers is back on our screens, and there's a top-of-the-table clash between Sudan and Senegal in Group B. Togo face Mauritania. SC, what do you think of those clashes?
You know why I'm doing this? Because it's tight.
Okay.
It's tight in these groups. And we look at Group B.
Yes.
It's going to be interesting to see how it pans out. You've got Sudan playing Senegal.
Very crucial game.
Very crucial game. Senegal comes into this game, played Sudan 3 times. They've mopped the floor with Sudan. I don't know what Sudan is going to do when they come up against this. And the unfortunate thing in this situation is that Sudan doesn't play their home games within their own country. They are playing their games outside the country. They're playing their games in Libya. So that alone, psychologically, for me, they've lost the match when I look at it in that way. Playing against one of the superhouses in Africa, it takes away something. The last 5 games between Senegal and Sudan, you look at what Senegal has done in the last 5 games. They've won 3 of those games and drawn 2 out of them. Sudan have lost probably once, and Senegal hasn't lost. And head-to-head, I think, as I said, Senegal cleans the floor with Sudan. So we're going to see what happens in this game, and I think I'll give it to Senegal. 1, the experience they have in the team. You look at the key players they have. You look at Sadio Mane. You look at a guy like Idriss Gueye. And unfortunately, I think they're lucky that Nicholas Jackson is not in this team. One of your favorite players in your diamonds, you know. So you look at that at home. It speaks volumes.
Wait, where did you hear that rumor? But anyway, let's see your predictions. 2-1 Senegal.
I think I'll give Senegal 3-1 into this one.
Wow, you think they're much stronger than Sudan?
I think they're much stronger.
Even though Sudan has everything to play for.
Look, I'll tell you what. People at home will look at me and think this guy is insane. And you look at where Sudan is sitting. They're sitting up top, and Senegal is sitting below them. And when I look at that alone, I look at the experience that Senegal brings into this game. And South Sudan roughly have a younger team versus Senegal. And
sorry to cut you short there. Mauritania versus Togo, the bottom of the table, your predictions there?
I look at Togo and I look at Mauritania and I ask myself a question. For them, I think this platform for them is just to say, we are just learning. It's an experience that we want to learn. And you look at the teams they're playing against, it speaks to that also. But I think Togo will come out with this one and probably take the 3 points.
Oh, well, it's beautiful. I'm always looking out for the underdogs. Wouldn't it be a story if Sudan facing a civil war, do something against Senegal? Well, I've always said it that the football fields on African soil is the solid grounds. Young talents grow. Dreams take flight and beautiful, bright futures glow. On that note, we're going to talk about the coaches on the continent, because when we saw Hermes Faye win for Côte d'Ivoire on African soil, well, it was more than just footballing triumph. It was just a glimpse of a changing tide in African football. Now, SC, what do you think of this new trend of teams using African coaches? Because 54 countries and 31 of the coaches are of African origins.
Patriotism in Africa is on the rise, and we surely cannot walk away from that. And you mentioned Hermes Faye. The guy is probably the youngest coach to actually win the AFCON Cup, you know, and that speaks volumes alone, and it speaks with the trust they had in him. And he brings quite an interesting acumen in terms of the talent that he brings into the team. You know, there's question marks around it, and there's controversy around it. But for me, I think, given the opportunity and given that the federation has said we trust this guy and we trust what he's going to do to the team going forward, he's one of those coaches who also have to look at and say, is he going to bring something into the Côte d'Ivoire team? He's done that already. Probably Aliou Cisse might feel outdone by this, but at the end of the day, we move on and we look at the coaches that are in the country. Aliou Cisse it's just something remarkable about what he's doing into these things. I mean, he won the AFCON with Senegal, you know, as a player as well. And
yes, and that was an interesting point because actually the local coaches could identify with the players. When old coaches that have been players come into the fold, they know what the players are feeling. They could feel like the mood in the land. Do you think that has something to do with why African coaches are starting to succeed on the continent?
Yeah, I think the federations are waking up to one ideology. You look at it in terms of the cultural differences, you know. You bring a European coach, not that we have anything against them, but you bring a European coach, but the cultural difference becomes too much. But when you bring a local coach, between me and you, when we're speaking one language, we understand each other, we've seen each other's struggles. We know where Africa has been and where Africa wants to go. So we share that alone as coaches and as players. So for me, when I look at that, I think it speaks to that alone.
Oh, wow, beautiful. Hermes Faye said it perfectly. He said, we learned our football in Europe, but then Africa is where our hearts are, and this is our time. Indeed, it is Africa's time, as we can see from the African diamonds shining out there in England. Yeah. And I have today's list for the viewers at home. At number 3 this week is Paul Onwachu. The 2-meter-tall Nigerian forward came off the bench to score his first goal at St. Mary's Stadium for Southampton. O'Shea. However, the Saints still lost to Wolves 2-1. That was the bottom club's 24th loss in 29 league matches, leaving them 18 points from safety. It be like, say, big Wahala day for Southampton, oh. At number 2 this week is Omar Mamouche. The Egyptian was a handful for Brighton's defense and even won the penalty from which Erling Haaland opened the scoring for Pep Guardiola's men. Then, in a moment of sheer brilliance, Mamouche launched a long-range missile that ended up at the back of the net. Boom! What a goal! That thunderous strike took his tally to 4 goals in 7 league games since joining City. Wow! At number 1 this week is Yohan Wissa and Bryan Mbeumo. For the first time on the show this week, we have a tie. Democratic Republic of Congo striker Wissa headed in Cameroonian Lion Mbeumo's corner in Brentford's 2-1 win over Bournemouth. Bryan Mbeumo and Yohan Wissa now have 36 goal contributions between them for the Bees this season. No wonder they're not missing Ivan Toney so much. So those are my 3 African diamonds for this week.